Knappogue Castle was built in 1467 by Clan MacNamara. Knappogue remained a strategic holdout for the MacNamara clan throughout the Irish Confederate Wars of the 1640s. It was used as a headquarters during the War of Independence between 1919 and 1921 by the commander of the Clare Brigade, Michael Brennan. In 1966, it was purchased by Mark Andrews, a Texan, and his architect wife, Lavone, and did an extensive restoration to accommodate the use of the castle as a restaurant and a private residence. At that time, he was also collecting rare casks of Irish whiskey from Irish Distillers that have since closed. In 1998, his son, Mark Andrews III, launched Great Spirits, which made his dad's private bottlings, the Knappogue Castle 1951, available to the public. Great Spirits merged into Castle brands and introduced age statement whiskies, including Knappogue Castle 12. Castle Brands has since been taken over by the Irish Distillers, which is today owned by Pernod Ricard. Well, welcome to Noel's World of Whiskey, and we are going to be wandering again from my last review was on an old timer, Ballantine's. I used to drink with the old gang when I worked in Calgary in the oil business, and also with some of my college buddies and that. And now we're wandering back over to Ireland. Now this one here is a bit of a mystery because I did a bunch of research on this and I had some conflicting information, but I'm going to start off by telling you that it's pronounced Knappogue. There it is, Knappogue Castle, and it is a real castle, and the story behind it is that it was an actual castle that this gentleman purchased with his wife, and they restored it. And in the process, he had an interest in whiskey and Irish whiskey, and he started collecting whiskey. So, new bottle. So we will get into it right away here. And I will give you, the first thing I like to do, of course, is pour a glass because I like to sit, it's a new bottle. So we will open it, and the research I did on this was more by accident because I saw it in a liquor store, and then I started researching it. And then I noticed there were several presentations, and I hadn't seen it really before. Maybe I hadn't noticed it before, but anyways, having said that, I kept sort of it was always on the back of my mind, and I kept seeing it. And this isn't in a BC. Government liquor store. This is more in the private liquor stores we see this. But again, I'm going to show you the bottle. Knappogue Castle. There it is. It's 12 years. It's a 43%. Doesn't look like a lot of coloring. If there's coloring in here, there certainly isn't a lot. Okay, it's bourbon casks, matured. Okay. And you can see by the color, there's not a huge amount of coloring in there, if there's any coloring at all. You know, I'm not going to question whether it's chill filtered or not. I couldn't seem to get any research on that. So, okay, let's figure out a little bit of the history of this here, because as we let it sit there for a bit, new bottle, we can maybe talk a little bit about Knappogue Castle. So, just briefly, the Knappogue Castle itself, you know, this whiskey it is a brand by Castle Brands, and they make single malts, and they basically it's named after and of course the brand was originally owned by this gentleman that purchased the castle. So 1966, Edwin Andrews and his wife Lavone purchased Knappogue Castle in the County of Clare. And as they renovated the structure, Mark Andrews amassed this collection of rare single malt Irish whiskies. He'd buy casks of these whiskies, which probably at the time back in the 50s, the few distilleries that were running, and maybe he saw the light that these distilleries might not be around, and also that you had several companies that were basically centralizing whiskey production in Ireland. So all the independents were slowly disappearing. So he focused, primarily on whiskeys once produced at Daly Distillery in the County of Offaly, which ceased whiskey production in 1954. And now the castle was actually purchased by Shannon Development, which he eventually sold to, and it was used for weddings and banquets, etc. But in 1998, his son, Mark Edwin Andrews, launched Great Spirits, which made Knappogue Castle available. Now, there's a famous 1951 whiskey, Knappogue Castle whiskey, and it was a very sought-after whiskey, and it was considered one of the best whiskeys out there. And he based a lot of his production from his father's legacy in making, being able to bottle really good whiskeys. So he carried on, he basically carried on the name Knappogue. And of course, and this is where the confusion comes, is that they talk a lot about it's one of the last of the independents. But as I did more research, I found out that it was basically, it says here, that it was now owned, Knappogue Castle portfolio is now owned by the Irish Distillers, which in my understanding is Pernod Ricard. So you got to research this stuff. But going back a little bit here, he basically, when he purchased the Knappogue Castle, and that was in 1966, he basically, his idea was, and he had money, and he was going to restore it, and he was a Texan, by the way, and his wife was an architect. So the two of them were going to restore it to its original its original history, and there's quite a history. I'm not going to read the whole history on this castle, but it was involved as a headquarters during the Irish Wars. It goes right back to the 1400s. Clan MacNamara, I think, was the original builder. And so you want to read some history on Knappogue Castle. It is a well-known castle. So, but anyways, while he was rebuilding this castle and refurnishing it, and his idea was to make it into a sort of a park, a museum. He was also, I think, temporarily living in it, but eventually he did sell it. And the actual whiskey itself, when he started, it was the collection of many casks that he purchased during the time he was in Ireland back in the in the 60s and that. And like I say, the 1951 vintage, it was 36 years old, and it was certainly revered by the connoisseurs as one of the oldest and rarest commercially available Irish whiskey on the market. So, but anyways, today, Pernod Ricard, and they keep making this whiskey. Now, this whiskey here, my understanding was it was mainly distilled at Cooley Distillery. James Teeling started Cooley Distillery. And today they purchase various whiskies from the distilleries in Cork County. Bushmills produces one or two of their whiskies. They do make an 18. That could be a Bushmills, I think. So anyways, that is enough on Knappogue Castle, a real castle that was purchased by a Texan and his wife, his architect wife, and rebuilt. And then it has been sold to Shannon, I think it's Shannon Developments, who now basically they rent it out for weddings, and they host various historical events, and yeah, you can visit that castle. So let's get into the whiskey, and we can nose it now. It's been sitting for a while. Lots of pears and peaches. So we got the citrus notes right off the bat, sweetness, and we know this is ex-bourbon barrels that it's been cured in for 12 years at 43% there. And by the way, that is their bottling strength. That's obviously not what they were. It was in the cask at cask strength, obviously. So maybe we'll see some cask strength stuff come out if it's not already out. So we've got a little bit of just a slight bit of oh boy, what is that now? Slight bit of muskiness going on there, but it's not a heavy spirit, and it's got a little bit of creaminess to it. Wee bit of savory, just a wee bit of savory, but dominated by pears and honey notes and citrus. Well, to the palate. Lots of sweetness, and I am getting some spice, nutmeg, pepper. There's a bit of a doughiness to it, bread dough. I talk about the Pillsbury dough. Fresh baked in the oven, Pillsbury muffins. Wee bit of the wood coming through the bourbon cask, and that's the vanilla and honey notes. I'm going to say probably the pears and even a wee bit of raspberry maybe. But nice coating on the mouth. This is definitely got a little bit of body to it. So I usually get a chance here to show you the actual glass. I'm using, of course, the Glencairn today, and the whiskey itself. And we can also peek at the legs and see if we can get some legs happening here. So we will take a peek there and just see if we can get some of the legs. I can see them from here, so hopefully you can see them. There we are. And a very light color, so if there was coloring, it's certainly not very much coloring in the glass. So let's get into the finish. So I really gave it a good chew there. It has a pretty long finish, and it has definitely a good coating on the mouth. This is about a $63 whiskey, single malt whiskey. So let's give it a little bit of water, and let's just see what happens if we open it up a bit more. And something I was going to show you after I add my water was, in the process of opening it a second time, we ended up, now this is a new bottle, and you can see what's happened. So I saved my corks for a reason. Now you almost would think you should be able to return this, you know, because this cork, new cork, this shouldn't happen. So I'm certainly not impressed, but this is a common problem, even some expensive. I've had McCallum's, I've had that happen. So the quality of the cork and the way they're manufacturing these, I'm noticing it happening a lot more today than it used to, so I won't put this all the way on, just partially. Okay, we sort of let this sit for a bit here, and it is a 43. I did mention there's a bit of body to this, and so I felt, you know, let's give it a little bit of water. I don't think we're going to get a Mortlach, which was unbelievable for a 43, so much body, and certainly could take the water, but let's see what happens here. And really amplifies the pears, and now we're getting strawberries. So I think I said raspberries before. Maybe a little bit of raspberry, but definitely more strawberry. Some banana notes too, by the way. And the honey. Baking spices in the background. And it did open it up. Getting a wee bit of the ginger, but not real spicy ginger. Okay, with water, the palate. Definitely the honey, the pears, and the strawberries right off the bat. Still leaves a coating on your mouth even with water. I'd mentioned the ginger. A nice, not real spicy ginger, but there's some ginger there. And almost a little bit of licorice in the background there, so I'm not sure if that's a charred barrel. It is American ex-bourbon barrels, so they're probably charred barrels. But a bit of the licorice notes in the background, more of a sweet licorice. But definitely it opens it up, gives it a few more layers. And a very pleasant drink, really. Best way to describe it, the word pleasant. So I'm going to say what you could add a little bit of water to this. I certainly don't think it did any harm to it. And I'm going to say that for $63, it might not be over the top. Maybe not even the word outstanding, but it's an incredibly good value for your money. And I would say definitely with a you know, it's got certainly a short medium finish I'd say. It has the notes of a Scottish single malt, really. And yet, you know, if I put it up against some of the other Cooley Distillery whiskies like Tyrconnell, you know, maybe we look at their classic. It's going to be similar to that, and that was a good whiskey, good, well graded. So overall, the notes are, it's got some sweetness, it's got some fruitiness, it's got some cask influence, and it's quite well balanced. Nothing intriguing about the whiskey. We're not we're not putting it in the class of, let's say, a Mortlach. But this is a kind of whiskey that I think when you're out there looking at the Glenfiddichs and the Glenlivets and even the Balvanys and the Dalmores and these real popular whiskeys, and some of them are pricey, the Macallums and all that. And and I'm not putting any of those whiskeys down. Believe me, I'm not. But I'm just pricing them out. And certainly, our Glenfiddichs and our Glenlivets are better priced than the Dalmores and the Macallums. But so maybe if we're looking at those whiskeys, still are quite a bit more than this whiskey here, which I'm trying to compare it with, let's say, a Glenlivet or a Glenfiddich, a Glenmorangie. Price-wise, what am I getting? So value for your money is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about value for your money. And I think this is very good value for your money. For $63, I think it's a great introductory whiskey. Certainly a whiskey that I would recommend. For me, it's not over the top. It's certainly a whiskey that I would definitely like to have a dram once in a while. So I'm going to rate this at about an 83. And that's part because of the value for your money. So I'm going to leave it at that. Knappogue Castle, recommending it as good value for your money at $63, and I'm going to give it an 83. So until the next time, I'm going to ask you to drink wisely, drink intelligently, do not drink and drive. So long.